Hi everyone, it's Michelle with Country Morning Creations here, and I'm talking about dyeing fabric and other things today using some natural dyes. This blue is using indigo, and I did what's called ice dyeing. And then for this beautiful, gorgeous pink, I used avocado and avocado pits. And what the ice dyeing does is it gives you more of this tie-dyed effect, and you actually can twist the fabric and create an actual tie-dye effect. That was not what I was going for. I just wanted this gorgeous, lovely mottled color, almost marbleized colors on this. And then I actually got some similar coloring with the avocado dyes, and you can see, for example, in here I got some of that marbling effect as well, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that depending on what you used, you'll get different colors as well. So this was all the paper, and this came out a much brighter pink. This didn't take the dye as well, and so this is where I got two different shades of pink. This is where I actually dipped the whole thing in the pink, and then this is where I went back and soaked up some of the pink out of the papers as they were drying. So let's start with ice dyeing and the setup for the ice dyeing. And what I simply did is I used the indigo, and I got this, it's only 2 ounces, and there's a ton here. I mean, I could do tons and tons and tons and tons of fabric getting this lighter blue with this. It's a lot, so you don't want to get more than 2 ounces. I got this from Amazon. It's from Dharma Trading Company. One of the things I want to point out is it says use only with adequate ventilation, wear a mask, and if you need to, wear protective gloves and goggles. I definitely wore, excuse me, I definitely wore gloves. I wear glasses, so I didn't feel like I needed the goggles. Grabbing a drink of water there real quickly. But what I didn't do, it talks about adequate ventilation. I would recommend either doing this outside on a day when there's like little to no breeze, or open a window, because what I found is this is really a fine powder. It got in the air and irritated my throat for quite a while. So definitely recommend that you follow the warnings that are on here. And then the method I did was I used, this is my colander or strainer, people call them different things, and I had just a regular pan. I took my fabric and I just kind of wadded it up and put it in my pan. Then I filled this area with ice cubes and then sprinkled the blue powder, the indigo powder, over the top and let it sit until it had melted through. Now, part of what I did was I did it over the pan so that as the dyed water came through, I was saving it. So once I was done with dyeing this, I then removed this and put it all down into the water because there was a lot of the powder left on top as well. And I just kind of mooshed it around. And you can see this was probably more the top parts, so it's darker. And then when I flip it over, you can see this is a very lovely light blue. So I have a lot of different colors. And when I flipped it over originally, this was white. And I didn't want white, I wanted blue. So I soaked everything down in the water. Then for me, I felt like it had gotten too dark. So I actually ran this through my washer and dryer and got this gorgeous color, this beautiful lighter color. I kind of like this darker color better, but there's some gorgeous, you know, this is not bad. This is a beautiful light blue. It may look white on the camera, but it's actually a beautiful light blue. The only thing I will warn you is you may want to use metal instead of plastic, because as you can see, my plastic colander is now dyed blue. I don't know that this is food safe. I doubt it is. So this is now my crafting colander, and I will use it for future dyeing projects as well. The other option is you could put a cookie cooling rack on top of here. do the same thing, bunch everything up and put your ice cubes on top and sprinkle it. Then you're not dealing with ruining your plastic colander, because that would be sad. Trying to double check. I did definitely experience a little irritation in my throat and nose even after I did this. I did wear the mask, but once I did it, the particles had gotten into the air. So that's why I'm saying you want to get a cross breeze of some kind going. Then let's talk about avocado. Oh, and the fabric I used for most of this was just an old sheet, a bed sheet my mom had given me. This is actually from Walmart, a sheet of, what is that called? This is a tea towel that I bought at Walmart. Now this I didn't rinse out, so this is a slightly darker color and is more that dusty, it has a little bit more brown to it than the sheet. So what I wanted to point out to you is different fabrics, different materials will come out different colors. So for example, these doilies, these are the dollar store doilies. When I first dyed them, they were very dark. They lightened up as they dried. On the other hand, this was pretty light and got darker as it dried. And then this piece I dyed it with the avocado dye and then rinsed the dye out. So I have this lighter color. And on this piece, where you're getting this mottled this had gotten quite dark. So as it oxidizes, it gets darker and gets this kind of dirty, muddy color to it. I was not liking that color, so again, I grabbed this, I threw it in my washing machine. I did use detergent and washed this and then threw it in the dryer. It still kept this muddy color, but the whole thing overall became a much lighter color. But all I did for that, again, was when I took it out, I let it dry like this so that the parts that were exposed to the air got a little bit darker. So if you like that coloring and you want something more marbled like that, let it air dry and don't rinse it out as much, or don't rinse it out at all. As a matter of fact, I did not rinse this at all initially. Then I went back and rinsed it out. And then for paper, this I literally just did the same way I do my coffee dyeing. And I personally just dried it, laid it out, and let it dry flat. If you look on the back side here, it's got some gorgeous, gorgeous variations and different coloring as well. So I wanted to show that to you, that it's going to change color. It's not going to stay just that one pink color. And avocado oxidizes, as you know. If you cut open an avocado, it starts out green and then it turns brown. Now, what did I do for dyeing my avocado? What I did, I lucked out. So apparently, avocados are different at different times of the year. So if you find a pink avocado, you may want to write down what time of year that was. And when I say a pink avocado, I'm talking about when you cut in, you've got the pit in the middle. If that pit looks pink, or if you cut into it and you get more of a pink hue, that's what you're going to get. If you don't, you'll end up with more of this brown. And so avocado dye can range anywhere from the brown of your tea and coffee to the pink and the pink browns of these fabrics. So you definitely want to look for a pinker pit. Every time I do avocado, I have used both the pit and the skin, but you want to scrub that skin really, really well because you don't want any of the flesh sticking to it, or you'll get green bits floating in your water. So you may need to strain it really, really well before you make your avocado dye. The other key, and I got a lot of this from an article, and I'll throw that link below if you want to read that as well. One of the keys is to use very low heat. I had read to use high heat and boil it for 20 minutes. This article was talking about using a very low heat. By using the low heat, I ended up with way more dye and a much darker dye than when I used, brought it to a quick heat and then boiled it. So I just kept it on low. I don't know that it ever actually came to a boil. I didn't really pay attention. I walked away and came back and checked it later. It was never really at a boil. So it was just a very low heat. Another thing that was recommended to get more of a pink, if you want more pink than the brown, is to actually use baking soda. Now, I'd love to say I had an exact measurement, but literally I just took my box of baking soda and sprinkled it down in the water before I started. The other thing that was recommended in the article is to keep checking it to see what color you're getting. So one of the things that I did a while ago was when I'd saved up a bunch of avocado pits and skins and didn't save them well. So when I started trying to get the color out, all I got was brown. I decided that was not what I wanted. So there are definitely some things you want to do. I recommend you use as fresh as possible of avocado as you can. So when you're done, if you're going to avocado dye, plan to make guacamole or something with avocado, cut up your avocados, get your pits and skins if you want to use both. I don't know the difference, honestly, because I've never done it one way or the other with just the pit or just the skin, but I know people who use just the pit or just the skin. I've always used both. And I have little notes over here. That's why I keep saying If your fabric gets too dark for any of these, remember you can wash it. It will probably lighten it as long as you wash it before it's completely dry. In both cases, I washed them before they got dry. And then with avocado storage if you're like saving up pits or saving up rind, I recommend freezing it. The article also said you could dry them and then store them in a container that will breathe, not a plastic bag or a glass jar, because then they mold. And that was one of the other things that happened to me, was I was saving up the skins and everything, even in the refrigerator, they molded. So I recommend you go with fresh. But the real key to getting the beautiful, beautiful pinks out of avocado is definitely, I think, to use a fresh one that when you cut it open, it's pink. I also dice up my avocado pits. I think a lot of people just throw the whole pit in. I find that at least then I've got more surface in order to get more of the dye out. And that works a lot better, and I think it goes a little bit quicker. I think about 20 minutes is about all you need. But again, according to the article, you want to keep checking it and testing it and seeing, is this the color you want? If you get it too strong, you can make it weaker by adding more water. The challenge is if you don't get it strong enough, then that you can't add anything to it. So I hope this makes sense to you. I think I've covered everything I wanted to cover with using both avocado and the indigo. I'm going to grab my indigo fabric here really quickly as well. And so I hope that this helps you. If you have any questions or comments or maybe a trick you've learned, feel free to share them in the comments below. And I hope that you'll also, I'm going to put this in a section for tutorials that is different from junk journals, but this is also part of junk journals. I can't wait to make, tear this into strips and then make the ruffles with this. I think it's going to be absolutely gorgeous for that. I hope that I have somehow inspired you to be creative today.